I'm Taylor.
Micaiah.
I'm Tasha. I'm Cecilia.
And I'm Matt, and today we're here to talk to you guys about the Make-A-Wish Foundation. So, according to the National Cancer Institute, last year in the United States, approximately 10,400 children under the age of 15 years old were diagnosed with cancer. How many of you guys know what the Make-A-Wish Foundation is? Does anyone know someone personally that had their wish granted? That's alright. I didn't either. I like watch the Sports Center episodes and stuff, the Make-A-Wish Foundations, where they make you cry. It's this awful feeling. So today we're here to tell you all about the Make-A-Wish Foundation and why it's important to donate to this cause to help grant children's wishes. The Make-A-Wish Foundation is a non-for-profit organization in the United States that arranges experienced children with life-threatening conditions. On average, every 38 minutes, the Make-A-Wish Foundation grants a wish to a child, and that's straight from the Make-A-Wish site. We've done extensive research through online databases, in some cases actual interviews with families that had Make-A-Wish children in them. So today we're going to supply you with useful information regarding this topic. First, we'll start with the history of the foundation, learning about how it got started, where at, and what the first wishes granted were. Next, we'll learn about the qualifications and the process of becoming a Make-A-Wish child. Then we'll talk about palliative care, which involves giving emotional help to the kids and the families and relatives so that they can get through it. And finally, we'll tell you about real-life stories and examples of those children. So now I'm going to give the floor to Cecilia to discuss the history.
So like Matt said, I'm going to talk about the history of the Make-A-Wish Foundation, the mission statement, the first wishes that were granted, how the foundation began, and the spread of interest nationally and internationally. So first, I wanted to begin with the mission statement. According to the Make-A-Wish Foundation for International Wishes, the mission of Make-A-Wish Foundation International, and that of all locations, is to grant the wishes of children with life-threatening diseases and medical conditions to enrich the human experience with hope, strength, and joy. So I wanted to first begin with a couple of the first wishes that were granted, and I'll start with Chris Gracious. I have a short clip video. And he is meeting with Frank Shankwitz, who was the founder and co-founder of the Make-A-Wish Foundation.
We set up a special day for Chris. He was picked up at his hospital on a Ranger helicopter, flown to our headquarters in Phoenix. And when they landed, that was the first time I had met Chris. They asked me to stand by just because I've been working with these children with my motorcycle. And when the helicopter landed, I expected our paramedics to help this very ill little boy out of there. He had leukemia. I knew he only had a couple weeks to live. Instead, here comes this little bound of energy just running over. Hi, I'm Chris, and he's just fascinated, high five. And he started telling me about my motorcycle, because he had watched Chip so much, he knew everything on there. Well, we sat him on there, and this little boy is beaming, and you see some of the pictures in the hallway there. He was looking at me like all of a sudden I was his hero. And that's the first time I think somebody had looked at me that way.
Okay, so Chris Gracious was one of the first unofficial Make-A-Wish Foundation kids. He actually was 7 years old and diagnosed with leukemia, and he was dying to be a police officer. So Frank Shankwitz made this dream possible for him. So after that first wish was granted, the nonprofit organization was recognized and began to expand. Its first donation was $15 from a grocery store manager, and from there people began to donate sums of money until they reached $2,000. And with that money, they were officially recognized as a non-for-profit in 1980 and able to fund their first official Make-A-Wish kid, who was Frank Bobsey Salazar. And according to the Huffington Post, he was the first official Make-A-Wish kid and suffered from leukemia, and his 3 wishes were to be a fireman, to go to Disneyland, and to ride in a hot air balloon. And after those wishes were completed, he passed away at the age of 7. The founding fathers of the Make-A-Wish Foundation were Frank Shankwitz, like I showed earlier. He was the president. The vice president was Scott Stahl, the secretary and treasurer was Kathy McNorris, and the members at the time were Alan Schmidt and Lynn Bergendahl. And after the funeral of Chris, Frank and Scott, the president and the vice president, began discussing the idea to create these dreams for multiple children. So in 1982, an NBC News reporter did a story on new small town charity granting wishes to children fighting for their lives. Because of this report, there were multiple viewers and the word spread drastically. And in 1983, with the help from Jack Stanford, who headed the organization at the time, it was finally incorporated. Now there are approximately 90 chapters nationwide, and it is internationally known, and there are different chapters internationally as well. So now Tasha's going to talk about the qualifications that it takes to become a Make-A-Wish child.
Now that we've heard the history about Make-A-Wish, I'm going to be talking to you guys about the qualifications and the processes that the kids must go through to actually become a Make-A-Wish kid, and what you guys can do to help a child become a Make-A-Wish kid. Along with donating to Make-A-Wish to help children, you can also refer them if you know them or if they're like a family member. I'm going to be discussing how you can refer them more into detail later. Knowing the qualifications and the processes of becoming a Make-A-Wish kid is important to know, and by following these rules, you could help a child you know. According to the Make-A-Wish Foundation website, wish.org, to qualify to become a Make-A-Wish kid, they have to have a life-threatening medical condition, but it doesn't have to be terminal. So that means if there's a possibility that they can come away from that illness, then it's still fine for them to have their wish at that time. The child must be at least 2.5 years old, and they have to be under the age of 18 at the time of referral. So this means if you refer them when they're 17 and they turn maybe 18 or 19 by the time they get their wish, that's still okay, they're still able to have their wish. The child can also not have received a wish from another wish-granting organization, such as Benefit for Kids or the Starlight Foundation. Restrictions on wishes only go so far as the child health concerns. Make-A-Wish works closely with the child's physician, and they want to make sure that the child is safe as possible, and they can only do so much as their illness allows them. Families do not have to pay for any expenses. Make-A-Wish covers everything, any expenses that they have, and the family's income does not have a factor on if they will get a wish or not. If any of you know a child that will fit these requirements, you can easily help them become a Make-A-Wish kid by referring them. After referring them, everything is placed in the foundation's hands. The first step is for the child to be referred to the foundation by their physician, their parents, or family member that has knowledge of their illness. So if you guys know any child in your family and you would like to refer them and you didn't know this already, you can refer them. The next step in the process of giving a child their wish is their medical eligibility. After being referred to Make-A-Wish, they will send the child's physician paperwork, and the physician will have to certify that the child actually has a life-threatening illness. And if the physician does not sign off that the child has a life-threatening illness, then that child won't get their wish. Step 3 is the wish. During this stage, the family will be visited by a wish granter, and during this step, the wish granter will interview the child alone or maybe with the parent if they have to, and they're just going to get all the knowledge of what the child's wish is, and they want to make sure that the child's wish is their own and they're not being influenced by the parents. They don't want it to be the parent's wish. They want to make sure it's 100% the child's. The final step in the process is creating joy. Wish granters want to personalize each wish and make the child's day perfect and something they will never forget. These qualifications and processes of becoming a Make-A-Wish kid are very simple. Any of you in this room can make a wish come true for a child in need. Now I will pass it on to Micaiah as she talks about palliative care.
Okay, now that you've heard about how to become a Make-A-Wish kid, I'll tell you about their daily lives and how it really affects them. when a children is diagnosed with a serious illness, they're introduced to a thing called palliative care. It's basically where there are physicians that are highly trained to help the families cope with their situation that they're involved in. According to Sergei Potovsky and Marianne Whale Ben Rush, it plays a vital role in by vigorous control of all physical symptoms in the dying child by paying close attention to all existential, emotional, and social demands in both the child and the relatives. Now, it's important that I put emphasis on relatives because it's important to remember that it's not just the child that's going through the situation, it's also the family involved. The goal of the therapy is for the dying child is to maintain comfort and support the child and the family. They can give this palliative care at a hospital or at a home. Their main goal is to make the quality of life as great as possible. Now, the quality of life is basically the well-being of the person. What have they done in their lives? What have they accomplished? And I mean, it doesn't have to be anything big. I mean, these are children, so they probably haven't done some groundbreaking thing, but just little things that makes their lives better. This is when Make-A-Wish really helps the child because it just brings up their quality of life. It gives them something to look forward to so they're not just moping around a hospital or their homes. It gives them something to talk about with their nurse or their friends or family, and it really gives them just something to be proud about. Most families and their children go through a delicate psychological process whenever they're going through this. According to Joel Marcus, many psychosocial effects can manifest, such as increased levels of depression, anxiety, and concerns about morality. Potovsky and Arash also mentioned that they have two main fears that they go through: fear of abandonment and then fear of separation from loved ones. Most children get depressed and they stop playing with toys, they cry a lot, they just stop doing anything sometimes. It's also important to remember that children are affected by their parents' moods. If they see one of their parents just really sad, they'll get sad too. They really feed off their parents. And it's also important to remember that to be a strong family unit. This is when Make-A-Wish just makes such a big deal to these families because it brings the family together. It gives the family something to look forward to. It makes the parents happy to see their child happy, and then it really gives the children the drive to get through their treatments. Now here's Taylor with examples.
So now that we've talked about the history of the Make-A-Wish Foundation, about what it takes to give a child a wish, and some of the care that they receive throughout their treatments, I would like to give you some real-life stories, and these stories should help you visualize some of the positive effects of the Make-A-Wish Foundation. So after personally interviewing two families, I have brought you two stories of little boys that had their wishes granted. So first, we'll talk about Kale. This is my second cousin, and in 2011, he was diagnosed at 2 years old with pleuropulmonary blastoma. The American Cancer Society described this as a very rare type of lung cancer in children. Kale's doctor actually reported that this type of cancer has only been seen in 600 people worldwide in medical history. Kale had his wish granted at 3 years old in April of 2011. Kale's wish was to go to Disney and meet Mickey Mouse, and his favorite part was going to meet all the different characters, and he really liked Mickey Mouse because he had a stuffed animal and he always took it with him to all his treatments at Riley Hospital. After asking Jessica, Kale's mother, what their Make-A-Wish experience meant to them, she had nothing but positive feedback. She stated, "Words cannot describe the love and support our family endured throughout the whole experience. My husband and I could never give our kids the whole experience we received. It is such an emotional journey, but this organization brings so much joy to the entire family." Like I said, Kale went to Disney in April of 2011, and after his awesome escape with the Make-A-Wish Foundation, he was put into remission just 2 months later. So now let's take a closer look at another story of Ben Milburn. He is a close family friend. Ben's story is very similar to Kale's, but his actually occurred 26 years ago. So this kind of shows how long the Make-A-Wish Foundation has been granting wishes and changing children's lives. Ben was also 2.5 years old,
and was diagnosed with medulloblastoma, a cancerous brain tumor commonly found in children. Ben's wish was granted at 3 years old, just like Kale's, and his wish was also to go to Disney. His favorite parts were hotel swimming and going to different dinner shows. Ben's mother, Cheryl, found the trip very beneficial. As she stated, Ben was able to enjoy time without medical procedures. It took his mind off of scary treatments and let him be a normal kid with some extra special attention. After returning from Disney, Ben continued chemotherapy for 2 more years and has been in remission ever since. So as you can see, 2 more years of treatment after his Make-A-Wish trip, the trip could have possibly given him just that extra strength to push through those last 2 years. So in my 2 interviews, at the very end of the interviews, I asked both of the mothers what they believe the Make-A-Wish Foundation donates to the child and how necessary they feel it is, which was also asked in the survey if you guys took it. Jessica, Kale's mother, said, "I believe this foundation is necessary for ill children because not only are they fighting for their lives, they also deserve to be spoiled in all that they are enduring and all they have experienced. They did not ask for their illness and deserve to have something they will always remember. Their parents are dealt with the burdens of finances and probably can't afford to do anything that spectacular, although they want nothing more than to see the joy on their child's face. It personally is a life-changing experience." So Ben's mother had really positive things to say as well, and she said, "I think the foundation is awesome. Unless you have been the parent of a child with life-threatening illness, it is hard to understand the daily stress and sadness that it places on a family. You grieve the normalcy that was lost and try to deal with the traumas your child and your family endures. The Make-A-Wish Foundation provides so many families with fun and takes their minds to a place of carefree happiness. There is no value that you can place on that." I hope both of these stories have helped you guys realize and visualize the positive effects of the Make-A-Wish Foundation on young, ill children. And maybe this will help you consider donating either now or when you get older and have some extra money. Whether their wish helps push them through 2 more months of treatment, like in Kale's case, or 2 more years of treatment, in Ben's case, the strength that this foundation passes to the child is undeniable.
So to recap what we learned today from everybody, we started with the history behind the Make-A-Wish Foundation and the first wishes granted to young Chris who wanted to be a police officer. Then we learned about the qualifications and how only children with life-threatening conditions can get in and the process behind that. Next, we learned about palliative care and how families and the children and the relatives can get the help they need to assist them through their time of need. And finally, we learned real-life stories, examples, and quotes from families and children that have had this affect them. In the end, anyone can be born with a life-threatening condition. You just have to consider how lucky you are not to be, and take advantage of that. And you can go online to the Make-A-Wish Foundation page and donate pretty easily. So, thanks for your time, everybody.